Well, hi there. It's Taryn Daly, and I'm here with Sean Morgan from Seether. This is another exclusive radio.com live, and we're so excited to be seeing you virtually today. How's your day going so far? What's happening?
It's good. It's been busy. I've been running around doing some errands, just basically normal everyday type stuff. Nothing incredibly exciting, unfortunately. I've got a few of these to do today, and then hang out with my kid later. So it's a nice chill day today.
That sounds like a delightful day.
Yeah.
So I have to be honest about something. Let's say hypothetically I dropped my intro to Latin class in college, so I only know what your new album translates to in English, which is "If you want peace, prepare for war." Can you please confirm for me, how do you say the title of the new album?
Sure. It's Si vis pacem parabellum. That's
Si vis pacem parabellum.
Yeah, that's at least when I did some research, because I wasn't I'll be honest, I wasn't 100% sure either, because I did very little Latin at high school, and most of it entailed reading the Lord's Prayer on Mondays and Fridays at assembly. We did it in Latin, and there was sort of rudimentary Latin when I was in about 8th grade, but they dropped it pretty quickly because it was, I mean, I think mostly only legal scholars use the Latin these days, you know what I mean? Unless you're like a Latin geek. But yeah, I kind of wanted it to sound a little bit more highbrow than stuff we've done in the past, and I liked what it all meant. So it just sort of seemed to fit the theme for the year of 2020, and I wanted to put my stamp on it like that somehow.
I love that. And speaking of the year 2020, this was just a strange year. I know so many bands had and still have all of this great work that they're doing, working on new music, getting ready to put out new albums. Some bands had chosen to put off the release of new music due to the global pandemic, but you guys went full steam ahead, and we have the new album. We have a killer new single called Dangerous. What made you guys decide to push forward rather than pull back?
Well, there's a couple of factors that are involved, because at first, the first thing was it was delayed originally from June to July and then to August. And then it just became, well, look, this thing's going to last longer than we all thought it was going to last, so let's just put the music out anyway. Because the way I see it is, if it gets pushed further back, and now it's a year after when it was supposed to be released, or even a year and a half after it was supposed to be released, to me, it doesn't feel fresh anymore. So I would then feel like I'm putting out some sort of catalog type of thing, and I would much rather write a new one and write brand new music for the new moment that it's in, and for and then the time that it's coming out in. So it didn't feel risky to us, because I think that we're first and foremost, we're pretty much known as a touring band, and that part was just ripped out from underneath us.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it is we do pretty well on the streaming side as well. So that's encouraging. And I think there's one of my mindsets and one of my approaches to it was, well, I've blown through all of the music that I love on my playlists, and if anybody put out something new, I'd search it out immediately, and then I'd start playing that. So it felt to me like it was a good idea to put it out and give some sort of hope in this year that seemed so hopeless, and just give the fans something to feel good about, because I know that there's a lot of people that are struggling, and certainly a lot of not necessarily financially, but I think mentally. For me, it's been a big mental struggle, and I've had a lot of ups and downs over the past about 8 months now, which is incredible. And I think at times like that, new music helps me as well as the older music that I know, because that's sort of the little blanket that you throw over yourself, and you sort of you feel warm and cozy. And yeah, for me, it was I needed to get it out as well for my own kind of well-being. So there's a whole bunch of factors that are involved, but I felt like to not put it out would almost be, in a way, would be selfish necessarily is the word that I'm thinking of, but I think it would just be sort of a failure to the fans, because there's this album, it's good to go, there's no reason not to release it, even because we can't tour on it. That doesn't mean people, they look at the positive side of that, as you can say, okay, well, we can't tour the new stuff right now, but by the time we do get to tour the new stuff, the fans will know the songs that much better. So it won't be like they're hearing some of these songs for the first time,
I love that. And as a fan, I think that, we're just all sitting around waiting to find out what's next and what's going to happen. And we need something to look forward to. So thank you guys for putting out the new album. The new single is Dangerous. You guys marched it straight up the charts. That's got to feel pretty good.
I tell you what, I was actually having a really, really long meeting yesterday with the label and management, and it was really fun. It was really, really sort of uplifting for me, again, with the mental stuff that I've been going up and down with through these past few months. to have a label that is so enthusiastic about the new stuff and to really be so excited about it, and really, I mean, the animation that was coming off of this computer screen from the people that were talking to me from the label was fantastic. That's the whole thing, is the excitement that they have, and the hard work that they've put behind the single as well. That sort of is a testament to them, and us all being on the same page and all sort of having a similar goal in mind. I wasn't, I was terrified. I'm always terrified when we put out a single and you go, okay, well, what's this going to do? How are people going to respond? Because especially when you think about, there's the singles we've had in the past that are sort of like You're Fine Again, You're Broken, even Remedy, and some others that are just sort of more of a straight ahead rock song. And then and Rise Above. Then you've got the sort of quirkier ones like Fake It and Country Song, where you literally, you cross your fingers, go, I think it's good, but I hope, what are other people going to think? And then the similar thing with Dangerous, because it's a little bit different for us. I mean, there's obviously a lot of elements that are quite Seethery, if you will, but there's a lot of it that, I mean, I wrote that song very differently to the way I normally write, and I wrote with the bass line driving the song and the whole way through, and then basically the guitars just being sort of the peripherals, and the color in the different areas that needed to be colored in, like in the verses, and then obviously in the choruses it's a bit different, and then I brought it all together in the bridge, and for me it's interesting that a song that I almost don't even remember writing, because it was such a different I tell Corey I just blacked out, and the next thing I knew is I had this song, so I was like but it's great to know that we can still, after 20 years of being a band and 18 years of our career here in the States, where we can still put out music that people are listening to and enjoying. Because there's fewer and fewer bands, it feels like, that can last for 2 decades and still have kind of a be putting out something that I think their fans really still enjoy. And that's at least the impression that I've got so far. I generally don't read reviews because I'm terrified of those too, and it's really easy to ruin my day. That's why I don't have. That's why I don't have social media, because for a long time it just became a direct avenue for somebody just to be a dick, and I just didn't understand. And now that seems like that's the only thing that people do on there. But so I didn't really think that was necessary. So again, with the reviews of stuff, I tend to not read them anymore. But everything I've heard has been positive. So it's great, and I'm hoping with this album we can continue this kind of success, and then I think probably at this point, with all this time on our hands, we will, in this time while we are, we have an album out and we can't tour, which is really, really bizarre. There's no reason not to maybe start writing the next album, because I've got, like I said, time on my hands, or maybe we'll do a side project type of thing, or maybe we'll do an acoustic thing, or maybe I'll do I don't know, maybe there's so many options available to me now. And meanwhile, in the background, our album is kind of out there, and the music is kind of chugging along, which is great. So it's very different and very bizarre, and it feels almost complete. There's a complete detachment, really, because when you're out touring a new album, you can see the response, you can gauge the enthusiasm from the new songs, and you certainly get a feel for, because people will tell you directly what they think of it. They'll come over and they'll say, well, I kind of liked your older stuff more, which is cool, I guess. Everyone has a favorite album, but for the most part, it's nice to get that feedback from people directly when you meet them and you hang out with them, and so that's been interesting to sort of. There's been this barrier between everything we've done. Even when we did that live stream show, there's this invisible. It's just us in a room, and then hopefully there's other people on their computers and TVs and cell phones. And it's so bizarre, because there's all the interaction is gone, and I'm not normally a very sociable person. When I'm touring, I like to socialize. Obviously, it's nice to meet fans and the people that support the band, but I was not really too upset about having to stay at home for a while, to be honest. Because I feel like every time I leave to go to the grocery store, I have to. It's not so much about getting in your car and taking a trip to the grocery store. It's now more about getting in your car and not being crashed into by some person that isn't paying attention, is on their cell phone, just generally doesn't care that you're on the road because it belongs to them. So for a long time, I've sort of like just removed myself slightly from society. But the interesting thing about that is when we were told we couldn't do that, then my rebellious side goes, well, wait, you're saying I can't leave my house now, even though I don't want to, but you're telling me I can't. So then I'm conflicted, Such a weird
So
thing.
rebellious. I love it. Well, you mentioned just a moment ago that you guys are celebrating your 20th anniversary. And anytime that happens, it's like one of those moments like, God, I feel like I'm getting old. But 20 years, that's an incredible career. One of the things that you guys are doing to celebrate is you've announced the release of 3 of your albums on vinyl. And again, we're all staying home right now. Vinyl is like, it is so popular right now. You guys are just doing it at the right place at the right time. Maybe talk about this, these albums that are going to be coming out on vinyl November 13th.
Yeah, you're right. It's been a very interesting development as well, because before the lockdown, our vinyl wasn't really moving, and then we thought, well, it was because people didn't want the vinyl. It turns out people want the colored vinyl variations. The black vinyl is boring, so we had only put out black vinyl before on the previous label, and it was kind of and it was interesting because it just really wasn't much interest in it. So I thought, well, obviously only the cool kids are buying vinyl because we aren't a very particularly cool band. So I'm finding myself quite mistaken, because with those releases of some of the catalog things, and then more releases slated for later this year or early into next year, and with all the new vinyl that we put up as pre-sale, I mean, it did fantastically well. I think all the limited editions sold out. We're up to, I think, our 8th or 9th color of limited edition now, because there's been such a ravenous excitement about it, and people have really responded to it. Now, that has completely surprised me, because I just had written off after years and years and years of vinyl sales being kind of lukewarm to nothing. I was convinced that there was just no way we were ever going to sell vinyl, and I was comfortable with that. I just felt like, well, we don't fit in the vinyl group, we don't fit in the CD group. Obviously, we'll just be in the streaming group. I don't know. We fit somewhere, I guess. So that's been really cool to see, and it's really encouraging that people, because I went out, I'll be honest, I was never really into the whole vinyl trend. I grew up with vinyl with my dad playing it, but I didn't jump on the bandwagon because I was like, yeah, I mean, I've got my my system in here. I can listen to music. I've got my phone. It's got generally good speakers. But I was wrong. I missed that I had fallen into that trap of everything being digital, and there's no tangible enjoyment of the experience anymore. You know what I mean? So you don't get to pull the record out of the sleeve and then smell that fresh vinyl smell, and then put the thing put it on the turntable, and then if you had the wrong turntable, you have to your hand starts shaking so you don't scratch when you drop the pin or the needle. So I had a real cheap one. It was like a $20 thing, and it was just kind of just for fun. And then I went out and spent I spent like $200 on one, and it was such a vast improvement. I've got some speakers, and this one the needle does it by itself, so I don't have to stress at all about damaging the vinyl. So it just pops up and it goes over and it drops where it needs to be. You can't select which track that way, but that's fine. I'm good with not having to, because the older you get, you maybe you had a couple too many cocktails last night. The hands are a little shaky. So I'm trying to protect the integrity of my collection, but so far the collection is really. I think it's Tom Petty, a couple of other rock bands, and then all the new albums or the new vinyls that we have, because I have to test them to make sure that they don't skip. But it's cool. It's unexpected. It's unexpected, and I think it's nice to feel like there's a sort of an enthusiasm for that side of our catalog in that format, because I really thought that was never going to happen. So I'm very pleasantly surprised and quite happy about it.
Well, I'm happy to hear that too. We're talking about things that we're doing in quarantine, like buying vinyl, doing stuff at home. Have you made any crazy impulse purchases while kind of in lockdown that maybe you ordinarily wouldn't have splurged on? What's like a big thing you treated yourself to over the past few months?
I don't. Okay. There was one, but there's a motivational thing behind it. The first part of that question is easy to answer, because I've been so stressed out about money that it's been really very few purchases. You know what I mean? It's like, because you realize all your eggs are in this one basket, and it's kind of a little terrifying. But the second thing was, because we've been reading about, and you see a lot of people with really great results with a Peloton. So we just got one of those.
Oh yeah.
A couple days ago, and it's like, you go, okay. I mean, it's so much money, but it's good for you, and it really, you've got other crap in this house that you paid money for that you never even really use. So why don't you? So I had to talk myself into it, and it was kind of, it wasn't an impulse buy either. I was sort of agonizing over it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's like $2,500, and it's a lot of money to buy and spend on what could very, very quickly become a clothing rack. You know what I mean? And it's a really cool looking clothing rack with a single purpose tablet on it, but so that's happened, and I'm happy about it. I think, it's going to be good to get into that, and maybe just be able to spend like 20 minutes a day, with a different, with your head in a different space, and just kind of being able to not stress out or think about the world beyond these walls of the house. But that would be, I would say, the splurge. I've thought about a lot of things. I'll think about like, well, maybe I need a new guitar because I'm kind of bored of these guitars. You know what I mean? And you go, well, no, I mean, you don't really play them that well anyway, so you might as well just practice until you get better at it, and then you can buy yourself a new one. I'm such a cheapskate. I wanted a 7-string to try and write some new music. And I bought like the cheapest 7-string you can buy. I think it was like $120. So it sounds like crap.
Nice.
Well, no, but it sounds like crap. So I wasted $120 on a cheap guitar that just sits here now and gathers beautiful dust,
Oh my gosh. Well, and you mentioned earlier too about the fact that this is all, we're all taking a toll to our mental health right now. Our mental health is being, affected. And so, getting a Peloton, doing something where you're kind of investing in yourself, a little self-care, that's always a really smart move. And what other self-care tips would you maybe think of to share with other people, aside from getting on that spin bike, which I know you're going to do?
Man.
What else are you doing to take care of your mentals?
I'm going to be straight up and say I have been the poster child for things you should not be doing. Like, I spend time with the family, and the girls are great. And especially when schools are closed. My daughter's about 3.5 and she goes to daycare. So she was home for 6 months, and there were good days, there were bad days. It was quite rough. And I, for the most part, I was just enjoying that experience, because watching her go from somebody that was sort of saying a word or two, and then to full-blown sentences, to paragraphs, and to actually being somebody you can have a conversation with back and forth was a great thing to be part of, because usually I wouldn't have been here for that. And so that's kind of been fun. But I mean, I can tell you all the things that I've thought about doing, and like getting in a workout, even taking a 45-minute walk, or meditating, or just doing some breathing exercises, or whatever, all of those things that I can tell you I've done in the past and I know how to do. But it's been really, and it's so difficult to stay positive and motivated to do even the smallest things sometimes, especially when you have a depression, and you really have to struggle with it in the sense of some days you'll wake up and you go, oh man, today I can just tell I'm going to have an off day. It's not, there's just no saving today. There's no amount of, unfortunately, there's no amount of breathing exercises or yoga poses or whatever you can come up with to dig you out of the hole. So you almost have to weather it, but you have to weather it, I guess, in the most, the least painful way. Does that make any sense? So you
that
find
makes perfect sense.
So you're in a rut, then play a video game. You know what I mean? But I get into the ruts, even to the point where even the video games, I'm like, I don't want to do that either. So then you just end up sitting watching YouTube videos. At least I've been learning stuff, I guess.
That's
but I would
important.
say, but I would say that as far as the stuff that you should be doing, you should certainly at least get some exercise. I would, at least something that releases some steam, like maybe you can play video games, or you can read a book. I read a lot. I did a lot of reading throughout this time as well. And I think, for people that can't have conversations with other people about it and how they feel, I think a good way to deal with any of that kind of emotional baggage that you feel is trapped, you can start a journal, just start writing your feelings and your thoughts down. And I know that sounds sort of cliche in a sense, but it's one of the things that I've found throughout my life, even when I was a teenager and I was really, really angsty. It was a good release because it felt like you at least were getting these thoughts into so again, the tangible form where you could see them and you could read them and go back and read them a few months later and see how dramatic you were being. But it's those are the things that I've done. And I wish, and again, I will say that even on the good days, it's easy to follow any of these kinds of rules. But on the really, really bad days, you really have to dig deep, to try and make something of the day that is beyond you staying in your pajamas and not leaving the couch. And then of course in Tennessee, they always talk about Seattle being so rainy. I guarantee you Tennessee competes with Seattle's rain, because it's nonstop all the time. So there was a lot of that too. There was one period where it felt like almost 2 weeks of nonstop overcast weather. and it was either rain or it wasn't even like cold or over. It was just hot and humid and overcast and gross. And you know, if you're already feeling pretty low, that's not the weather you want to be. You want to be you're bogged down in. So yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I think people should just. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule for anybody, really. I think that there's, you know, if sometimes that I'm really stressed out or I feel a panic attack coming on, I have a couple like breathing exercises, and maybe some sort of meditation things that you can do. Sometimes those don't work. Other people say, I just take a Xanax. I don't personally do any of that stuff anymore. Again, I do drink, you know, vodka, but I don't do the drugs and the real sort of, you know, the self-medicating stuff anymore. But yeah,
sure.
And the thing is I know it's difficult, and I think just what I try and do is just try and find a silver lining even on the worst days. And if you can hang on to that silver lining, it can certainly make the for me at least, can make the bad days feel a little bit less bad, you know.
Absolutely. And, you know, just speaking from personal experience, one of the things that gets me through those dark days is music. And I know that your fans feel the same exact way. And that's why I'm super excited. You guys are going to share a few songs with us today. I believe we're going to be hearing Dangerous and Remedy. So if you don't mind, I will let you guys go ahead and take it away and kick that off. And thank you, John, so much. New album out now. We're so excited. And, you know, thanks for taking the time to connect with us today.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
So take them off, the blinders that cover your eyes. Don't break new ground, just follow the beaten path. Well, all I can do in the end is bury it in the cellar. And only a fool would pretend to blame it on the weather. It's so dangerous, all this blamelessness, and I feel like I lost all the good I've known. It's so dangerous, all this shamelessness, and I feel like I'm watching a tumor grow. Yeah. Now take them down, the roses you smothered, they died. I hear the cries of souls you have eaten since. We all must revere and defend the fortune of the teller. We all must subdue and suspend belief that this gets better. It's so dangerous, all this blamelessness, and I feel like I lost all the good I've known. It's so dangerous, all this shamelessness, and I feel like I'm watching a tumor grow. Yeah, please just say you know you won't be satisfied, not unless you know your name is verified. God, I hope you choke on hate and stomach bile, even as you sing the praise of feticide. Please just say you know you won't be satisfied, not unless you know your name is verified. God, I hope you choke on hate and stomach bile, even as you sing the praise of feticide. It's so dangerous, all this blamelessness, and I feel like I lost all the good I've known. It's so dangerous, all this shamelessness, and I feel know you'll be the death of me, 'cause I don't need a friend, I need to mend so far away. So come sit by the fire and play a while, but you can't stay too long. It aches in every bone, I'll die alone, but not for pleasure. And I see my heart explode, it's been eroded by the weather here. If you want me, hold me back, frail, the skin is dry and pale, the pain will never fail. And so we go back to the remedy and clip the wings that get you high. Just leave them where they lie and tell yourself